Marcus Hale arrived at the Vantage Capital Group building at 8:43 in the morning, 17 minutes before his interview was scheduled to begin. He always arrived early. It was one of the few habits he had kept from his old life, the life before everything changed, and he held onto it the way a man holds onto something small and solid when the ground beneath him has shifted. The lobby was tall and cold and made almost entirely of glass. The floors were polished to a shine that reflected the overhead lights in long, pale strips. Marcus sat in one of the chairs near the reception desk and placed his manila folder on his knee. Inside the folder were 3 copies of his resume, 2 reference letters, and a single sheet of paper where he had written, in his own handwriting, the key points he wanted to remember to say. He had read that sheet 4 times on the bus ride over. He straightened his tie. It was a blue tie, slightly narrow by current standards, but clean and pressed. His suit was dark gray. It was the best suit he owned, which was also the only suit he owned. He had taken it to the dry cleaner 2 days ago and paid $12 he could not easily spare. The receptionist glanced at him once when he sat down, then again a few minutes later. The second glance was not unkind exactly, but it was the kind of look that measured and then moved on, the way people look at things they have already decided do not require further attention. A group of young executives crossed the lobby near him, laughing at something on one of their phones. They were sharp and loud and at ease in a way that told Marcus they had never once questioned whether they belonged in a room like this. One of them, a man who could not have been older than 28, slowed slightly as he passed Marcus and looked at him the way people look at something that doesn't quite fit the picture. He said nothing. He kept walking. Marcus watched them go. He thought about Lily. She had a recital in 4 days. She had been practicing the same piece on the school piano every evening for 3 weeks, and she was getting better each time. She was 9 years old and she practiced without being asked, which was something Marcus loved about her so completely it sometimes caught him off guard. He needed this job. He needed this job the way a man standing in shallow water needs the tide not to come in any further. The HR coordinator who came to collect him was polite and efficient and introduced herself as Sarah. She walked him to a conference room on the 3rd floor and told him the hiring manager would be with him shortly. She did not offer water. The room had a long glass wall that looked out over an open floor of analysts and screens and the quiet, constant motion of a working company. Marcus sat down, placed his folder on the table, and waited. The door opened about 3 minutes later, and the woman who walked in was not the hiring manager. Marcus knew this immediately, not because he recognized her exactly, but because of the way she moved. She carried a tablet under one arm and was finishing a sentence into her earpiece, and she had the particular kind of focus that belongs to people who are always in the middle of several things at once and have made their peace with that fact. She was perhaps 40, with dark hair pulled back cleanly, and she wore a jacket the color of deep water. She stopped when she saw Marcus and glanced at the room number on the door, then back at him, then at the resume sitting on the table between them. For just a moment, something passed across her face. It was quick, and she did not mean for it to show, but Marcus had spent years reading rooms and he caught it clearly. It was amusement. Small, unguarded, and genuine. The kind that comes when something confirms what you already suspected. She said, "Sorry, wrong room," and she was already turning as she said it. The door clicked shut behind her. Marcus looked at the closed door for a moment. Then he looked down at his hands, which were folded on the table. Then he thought about Lily's recital. 4 days. He breathed slowly and waited for the hiring manager. What the lobby did not know, and what the glass walls of the conference room did not know, and what the young executive with the expensive suit certainly did not know, was who Marcus Hale actually was. For 11 years, Marcus had worked as a senior restructuring strategist at one of the most respected consulting firms in the country. He did not fix small problems. He flew into cities where companies were bleeding money and leaving boards in a quiet panic, and he sat down, and he worked, and he found the break in the structure, and he fixed it. He had walked into rooms where grown men with decades of experience were barely holding themselves together, and he had left those rooms with a clear plan that worked. He had done this more times than he could count, in industries from manufacturing to finance to logistics, and he had been very, very good at it. Then his wife, Claire, got sick. It started as something the doctor said was manageable. Then it became something that required real attention. Then it became something that required everything, and Marcus gave everything, and Claire fought with everything she had, and in the end it was not enough, and she was gone 11 months after the first diagnosis. Lily was 6 years old. She had her mother's eyes and her father's habit of going quiet when she was thinking hard about something. Marcus looked at his daughter sitting in the kitchen the morning after the funeral, eating cereal with careful, focused spoonfuls, and he made a decision. He handed in his notice the following week. He told his colleagues he needed time. They nodded and said they understood, and some of them did, and some of them did not, and Marcus found that he could not tell the difference and did not have the energy to try. He gave 3 years to Lily. He was there when she came home from school. He was there for every fever and every bad dream and every afternoon when she needed someone to sit beside her while she figured out the hard things she was trying to figure out. He learned to braid her hair. He learned which of her friends were kind and which ones weren't. He learned that she liked strawberry jam but not strawberry candy, and that she was afraid of moths but not spiders, and that she sang quietly to herself when she thought no one was listening. He did not regret a single morning. But now Lily was 9 and she was steady and she was brave, and Marcus had slowly, carefully begun to re-enter the world that used to know him. He had applied to 31 positions over 4 months. He had reached the interview stage 9 times. Every single time, within the first few minutes, someone asked about the gap on his resume. Not about his 11 years of work. About the 3 years he had spent raising his daughter. He always answered honestly. He always explained. And each time, he watched something close in the interviewer's face, some quiet door that shut before he had finished his sentence. He carried his experience like a set of tools in a bag no one had asked him to open yet. The hiring manager's name was David, and he arrived apologizing for the wait with the practiced ease of someone who was often late and had long ago made peace with it. He was professional and organized, and he moved through the interview questions in a steady, methodical way that told Marcus he had asked these same questions many times before and would ask them many times again. Marcus answered well. He was specific. He gave real examples. He spoke about systems and numbers and outcomes with the quiet precision of someone who genuinely understood what he was talking about, not just someone who had memorized the language. David typed notes and nodded without quite looking up. Then David's phone buzzed on the table between them. He glanced at the screen and his entire posture changed in a way that he tried to hide and did not quite manage. He said he needed to step out for just one moment and that he was very sorry. He was gone before Marcus could respond. Marcus sat alone in the glass conference room. He did not check his phone. He looked out through the glass wall at the floor below, at the movement of the company, at the screens and the people and the ordinary machinery of a working day. And then, because some habits simply do not leave a person no matter how long they have been away, he noticed something. In the conference room adjacent to this one, visible at a narrow angle through 2 separate panes of glass, a presentation was running on a large wall screen. Marcus could not read all of it from where he sat, but he could read enough. And what he could read made something go still and focused inside him in a way that nothing had made him feel in 3 years. The numbers on slide 9 did not work. Not in a small, rounding error kind of way. In a deep, structural, this was built on a wrong assumption kind of way. The kind of error that lives quietly inside a financial model for weeks and then detonates the moment someone stress tests the projections. The kind of error that ends deals. David came back into the room moving faster than he had left. He was apologetic and clearly shaken and was already beginning to explain that something had come up internally and he might need to. Marcus said, quietly, the Aldrin Group presentation. David stopped. Slide 9, Marcus said. The revenue reconciliation. There's a compounding assumption error in the Q3 projections. It's going to fall apart the moment they run a standard stress test. He paused. Are they in that room right now? David stared at him. Marcus pulled a blank sheet of paper from his folder and picked up his pen. I can show you exactly where it breaks. Do you have someone in there who can take a correction? What happened in the next 20 minutes was not loud. It was the opposite of loud. It was the particular kind of quiet that falls over a room when someone who genuinely knows what they are doing begins to work. David made 2 phone calls in the hallway. Marcus waited. Then he was walked, not escorted with ceremony but walked quickly and practically, into the adjacent conference room where 4 people from the Aldrin Group sat on one side of a long table, and 3 members of the Vantage Finance team sat on the other, and the energy in the room had the specific texture of something that was about to go badly wrong. Elena Vos was standing near the window with her arms crossed. She had come when she heard the word collapse used in proximity to the word Aldrin. She was the kind of person who always came when she heard those words together. She watched Marcus walk to the whiteboard. He did not introduce himself with a speech. He picked up the marker, asked the finance team to put slide 9 back on the screen, and began to work. He explained where the model had broken, in plain, exact language, tracing the error back to its source with the confidence of someone who had found this exact kind of break in 100 different models and knew precisely how to describe it so that every person in the room, regardless of their background, could follow. He then showed how to restate the affected figures in a way that was accurate, defensible, and actually more favorable to the partnership structure than the original numbers had been. The room was very quiet while he worked. The lead analyst from the Aldrin Group was a man named Forsyth. He was the kind of man whose face gave very little away, and he had apparently killed 3 deals in the current year alone on the basis of technical problems that other people had missed or minimized. He watched Marcus work with an expression that did not change. Then he asked 2 questions. They were sharp and specific and designed to find the edge of what Marcus actually knew. Marcus answered both of them without hesitation. He gave sources. He gave context. He remained calm in the way that only people who are not performing confidence can remain calm, because actual knowledge does not require performance. Forsyth looked at him for a moment. Then he nodded. Once, slowly. The meeting did not fall apart. The deal moved forward. Marcus, before he stepped back from the whiteboard, had also noted a secondary adjustment to the partnership terms that would strengthen the arrangement for both sides, and Forsyth had looked at it for 90 seconds and said, simply, that it was a good observation. When Forsyth shook Marcus's hand on his way out of the room, he asked which team he was on. No one answered immediately. The room cleared slowly. Elena Vos asked Marcus to stay. They stood on opposite sides of the conference table. The city was visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind her, gray and bright at the same time. She looked at him the way a person looks at a situation they have badly misjudged and are now trying to understand fully. She asked who he was. Not his name. Who he was. He told her. Not with drama or self-pity, because he had none of either left, and because he had learned in the last 3 years that the truth, told simply and directly, was usually the most powerful version of itself. He told her about the 11 years and the work and the kinds of rooms he had been in and the kinds of problems he had fixed. He told her about Claire. He told her about Lily and the decision he had made and the 3 years and the 31 applications and the 9 interviews and the question that always came, the one about the gap, as though loving his daughter and staying beside her while she grew up in the shadow of grief was a gap. Elena was quiet for a longer time than most people would have been comfortable with. She was not a woman who filled silence just to fill it. Then she asked why he had applied for an analyst position. He said, because no one was offering me anything else. And my daughter has a recital in 4 days. Elena looked at him for a moment. Then she looked down at the table, and then back at him, and something in her face had changed in a way that was not pity, because Elena Vos did not do pity, but was something closer to the particular feeling a person gets when they realize they have been seeing something incorrectly and are now, finally, seeing it right. She told him she was not going to offer him the analyst role. She was going to offer him the position of Chief Restructuring Advisor. The role did not currently exist at Vantage Capital Group. It would exist by Monday morning. She told him about the other 2 deals that were in various stages of difficulty, deals that her current team had been working on for weeks without resolution. She said she had just watched him accomplish in 18 minutes what had not been accomplished in 3 weeks, and that she was not in the habit of ignoring what she saw with her own eyes. She named a number that was fair. It was, quietly, slightly more than fair. Marcus listened to all of this without interrupting. When she finished, he said he had one condition. He needed to leave by 3:15 on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and by noon on Fridays. Those were the days that belonged to Lily. They were not negotiable. Elena said yes without pausing. He asked her why she agreed so quickly. She said, because a man who walked away from that career to stay beside his daughter is exactly the kind of man I want making decisions in my company. Marcus looked at her for a moment. He said thank you. He meant it simply and completely. For days later, on a Thursday evening, Marcus Hale sat in the third row of the wood-paneled auditorium at Lily's school. He was wearing the same suit he had worn to the interview. He had not yet bought a new one. There had not been time, and also, truthfully, it had not seemed like the most important thing. The auditorium filled around him with other parents and grandparents and younger siblings who could not quite sit still. Someone behind him was unwrapping a candy very slowly, which somehow made it louder. Marcus did not mind any of it. When Lily walked out onto the stage with the other children, she was not the tallest and she was not the most polished, and she looked briefly uncertain in the way all children do in the moment just before something begins. And then she found her father's face in the third row, and she smiled, and it was the particular smile of a child who knows without any doubt that her person is there, that she is seen, that whatever happens next will be okay because the person who matters most is in the room. She played her piece from beginning to end without a single mistake. Afterward, in the parking lot, while other families moved around them in clusters of noise and winter coats, Lily held Marcus's hand and asked him how his week had been. He thought about the lobby and the glass and the look on the CEO's face. He thought about the whiteboard and Forsyth's handshake and the number Elena had said across the conference table. He thought about the folder on his knee in that cold, quiet room, and the $12 dry cleaning, and the 31 applications, and every door that had closed before he finished his sentence. He said, "Good. Better than I expected." Lily nodded as though this was exactly the right answer. She swung their joined hands once, lightly, the way she had done since she was very small. They walked to the car together. The parking lot emptied around them. The lights above the entrance stayed on a little longer than they needed to, the way lights sometimes do, as though the building itself has not quite decided the night is over.